Today we're reading about some more entitled people and it's going to be so fun. I hope you guys are having a good day, or I hope you did have a good day. And as always, if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you like and subscribe and let me know down below. And let's get into it. Enjoy, guys. My neighbor offered my mum $1 for part of her property after expanding his driveway into part of her front yard. This might be the wrong place for this. It's a combination of entitlement and general terribleness. I can't wait. My 74-year-old mum's neighbor, mid-60s male, decided he needed a bigger driveway so he could fit 4 cars, including the ones belonging to his 2 children, who no longer live there. My mum somewhat reluctantly agreed, under the condition that she pay for everything built over the property line and maintain the right to remove or build on top of the unreasonably large driveway. A few years went by. The neighbour wanted to sell the house and asked my mum to sell him part of the property he'd built onto, the part which she had also paid for $1. And when she said no, all hell broke loose. He started showing up at her house with a video camera, screaming at her for being a cruel woman who didn't want him to see his kids. There is permit street parking and all residents on the block have 2 parking passes, and you can request up to 6 temporary guest parking passes. Eventually she decided to have a surveyor come to determine the property line and build a fence to keep him and his family away from her. When workers started pulling up the part of the driveway on her side of the property line, it got even more aggressive and ridiculous. His wife showed up crying over how they can't live without the extra driveway space. They started strategically parking their cars to make it as difficult on the workers as possible. They threatened to report the workers to ICE despite having no knowledge of the immigration status of the workers. In response, they rather hilariously pulled up everything around and under the son's car, so only the tyres were still on the driveway. And then the son showed up at the door and told my mum, "I just made my first $1 million and I'm gonna buy the house and make your life miserable." One day I was in the backyard and the guy was leaning over the fence and yelled, "F you." When I turned around, he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you were your mother." They eventually sold the house for nearly $500,000 under asking. The new neighbours are lovely. Right, so they ended up leaving. Oh, that's such a good ending. I was gonna say, I hope your mum didn't have to leave. That would have been so sad. Because yeah, somebody would have to leave. You can't live next to people like this. And like this comment says, I'm sorry, I thought you were your mother. Lol, what? Did he expect you to say, understandable, have a nice day? And OP said, I wish I had some awesome response that made him run off crying, but I was so shocked I just told him to go F himself. Well, that's better than nothing, OP. But yeah, for real, how awful can people be? Apparently pretty bloody awful. Post number 2 is called Entitled Karen Wants to Use My Wheelchair at an Antique Store. Cast is me, myself, and I. Nels, old man, though he doesn't speak. And Harriet is Karen. My husband and I rent a display space in an antique and consignment store for our collective side hustles. I quilt and crochet. My husband sells custom die-cast cars and diorama supplies. Every few weeks we go in and restock our space. This store is very large and it can be a bit of a maze, and the store has designated rest stops in the aisles. One is across from our space. The store does not provide mobility aids for customers, so it's a BYO policy if you need a walker or wheelchair. I'm a wheelchair user as I'm paralyzed from an L2 spinal cord injury. My husband and I were at the store restocking the space. My husband had just left to take one of our totes out of our van, leaving me in our space sorting through my tote that the baby sets I make. When I hear somebody huffing behind me, I didn't really pay too much attention to it, thinking that somebody might have been taking a break at the rest stop. I was just finishing laying out my sets on the table in our space when the person at the rest stop decided to talk to me. Do you know if the store has wheelchairs for people to use? I look up from my task and I see an elderly couple across from our space. The old man is standing next to the bench looking kind of annoyed, while the woman has flopped on the bench in an I can't take another step kind of way. I honestly was concerned that she might have been having a medical issue, as she was rather plump. Are you okay? I ask, about to tell her or her partner to use the phone above the bench to reach the staff desk if they need help. This store is too freaking big, Harriet exclaims. I can't walk anymore. Me, this store has a chair for Medivac use. One of the employees could bring it to you if you need help leaving. Harriet, but we're not done shopping. Me, I don't think they have wheelchairs to borrow. They've had issues with rowdy kids riding mobility scooters, so they don't provide them. But if you use the phone above you can ask a staff member. Just dial 1 and it'll connect you to the staff desk. There's a sign next to the said phone that states this. Harriet seems to be thinking about her options, so I go about my work. Nels wanders down the aisle, possibly looking for an escape route. Harriet, what about the wheelchair you're sitting in? Me, this is my personal wheelchair. It doesn't belong to the store. Harriet, can I borrow it? Me, what? Surely she's not asking to take my chair to go shopping. Harriet, I want to use the wheelchair. You're young enough that you could stand to walk for a bit. I'll bring it back. Me, ma'am, I can't stand at all. I've been paraplegic since I was 12. This wheelchair is not store issued. It's my personal property that cost a lot of money. If you call the staff, maybe they can let you use the medical chair, or maybe they know somebody who has one in their space that you can buy. But I will not give you my chair and I can't help you. At this point, I've rolled out of our space. I decided to head towards the vendor the door and just leave. Rumor has it Harriet is still sitting on the bench waiting for somebody to give her a wheelchair. Wow, that's so bad. Telling somebody in a wheelchair to stand up? Oh, come on, I know you're in a wheelchair, but surely you don't need it. I'm older than you, so that must mean that, what, you're healthy and I'm not? The absolute audacity. What, you're paraplegic and you haven't been able to walk since you were 12? Well, I'm old, so I need it more. Sorry you had to deal with this person, OP. I've noticed that about old people, and I don't want to make like a massive generalization, but old people can either be super cute and nice, or they can be so entitled and angry, as you can see in this post. The next one is called I Caught My Mum's Partner's Son Going Through My Stuff. So, my 19 male mother, 43 female, began dating L, mid-40s male, last year. Eventually, he brought his 2 children to visit me and my sister, 13 female. I'd returned from a remote job. I had to leave the night before because the job was 3 hours away in a small town. I got home from the job around 5 p.m. The moment I got in the door, I made it abundantly clear that I would not tolerate anything, as I was quite tired and hungry. I'd only eaten a cheese and bacon roll. I showered. As I smelt like diesel fuel and sweat, I entered my room and I found my mother's partner's son going through my PlayStation 4 game collection. I'd purchased a PS4 from my best friend. I immediately kicked him out. I relayed the story to my mum, who stunned me by saying that he was grumbling that I'd kicked him out of my room. Some additional details. 1. He owns 2 PlayStation 4s and a PS5. He, up to that point, always knocked on the door and asked prior to playing with me or watching me play. Number 3. He has been busted before I even got the PlayStation, attempting to purchase games for the PlayStation. I generally see him 1 to 3 times every second week. Number 5. I was working in 38-degree weather from 6 a.m. until 1 p.m. and he was apparently warned by both my mother and his father about approaching me and was advised not to ask until the following day. Yeah, God, I don't know, that's not that bad. They don't really sound that entitled. They sounded like they were excited to hang out with you. Like, yeah, they should be asking first, but does this make them entitled? I don't know. I don't feel like it. And also, what do you mean he was warned by my mother and his father about approaching me and advised to not ask until the following day? As in, like, what? You can't be polite because you got home from work or something? Is that what that means? Like, I'm tired from work, don't ask me today, ask me tomorrow? Like, yeah, they should be taught boundaries and they should be taught to ask if they need something. But also, a bit like this comment says, sorry mate, but I feel bad for the kid. Imagine being excited to watch somebody else play a PlayStation 4. Give him a break. But like the comment under that says, at top, should have had a talk that it's not cool to go through other people's stuff without talking first. And if he wants to watch a game being played, at least ask, hey, that game is cool. Can we play? Not go rummaging while OP is in the shower to ask after he'd rummaged around. But on the relaxed side of talking, that's just siblings, no matter what shape or kind, OG siblings. As the oldest of siblings, I've had this talk a million times to ask first. Yeah, definitely. The next one is called Entitled Neighbor Thinks He Can Wander Into My Back Garden Whenever He Wants. I'm going to try and set the scene a bit here. My house backs onto a number of flats. I have a little terrace and garden at the back that's linked to my property. Below that terrace is a small patio area that's linked to the flats, which they can get access to by their own back door. There are then steps up to my area which are gated off. I also have a locked gate that allows access to the terrace and garden because I live on a main road. A few months ago, the flat behind me had a problem with their plumbing, and the drain behind was overflowing with literal crap. Obviously, an extremely nasty situation for everybody. When the owner of the flats, we'll call him T, asked if he could come around the back and check the drain. Of course we said yes, because we're not total a-holes. After he checked the drain, he said he needed somebody to come out, check it, and then drain it. We agreed, but we made it clear that we need to be made aware of it before it happened, as stipulated in our rental agreement with the letting agent. He said fine, and we got a notice before any work was done, so we can ensure that our gate was unlocked. I thought that was the end of it, and boy was I wrong. A few days later, I was at home when I heard my front gate open. I found it odd because my boyfriend wasn't due home from work for a little while, and nobody knocked on the door. The door to my house is immediately next to the gate, so it's seconds between the gate opening and a knock. When the gate went a second time, I looked outside to find T walking away. Obviously, he'd entered my property without my consent, wanting to give him the benefit of the doubt, believing that he just wanted to check the drain one last time. I didn't say anything about it, letting it slide. A couple of days later, my boyfriend, who had given him his number to deal with the drain issue, got a phone call from him saying that he needed to gain access to the back of our property. And why did we have our gate locked? As my boyfriend said, we were both at work and neither could come home to deal with his request, and if he needed something to speak to the letting agents, he just hung up. I spoke to my boyfriend and we collectively came to the decision that we'd keep the gate locked at all times, even when we were in, because I didn't feel comfortable with him just walking into my property as and when he felt like it, and he did not like that. The next time he tried to get in, my boyfriend was at home and I was at work. When he opened the gate, he got a stream of abuse from T, asking why we'd lock the gate when he had permission to have access to the back, and there's a note in our rental agreement to state this. He threatened to get solicitors on us if we didn't leave the gate open or give him a key to get in when he wanted. It It was here he said because he'd renovated the house he deserved to gain access on his terms, even though he wasn't our landlord. My boyfriend just told him to take it up with the letting agent if there was a problem and shut the door in his face. When I got home, I combed through my rental agreement and there was no such note in place. The only thing I could find about access was that we required 24 hours of notice for any work or access to the property, including the garden, unless it was urgent and they required access sooner, but they still had to provide detail in writing about any work that would be done even within 24 hours. Because of this, I told the letting agent, who had communication with T, that he would have to ask for access to my garden via them, and I required the written notice as stipulated in my contract. They agreed to pass the message on. Things cooled a bit, but the problem with the drain started again. We could see it was overflowing and apparently T was aware, but we hadn't heard anything from him or the letting agent about when somebody would come and deal with it. This was when I got my own back. I'm probably a bad person for this, but at this stage I'd had enough. T turned up with the drainage company on a day that I was home unwell. I was lying on the sofa when I heard a van pull up and somebody trying to open the gate, but of course it was locked. The bell went and I considered getting up and answering the door, but when I heard T's voice, I decided I wasn't going to feed his entitlement. I just laid back down, stuck my earplugs in and tried to go back to sleep. For the next 30 or so minutes he tried to get in, constantly ringing the bell, knocking loudly on my window, shouting into the house, screaming at what I can only assume was my boyfriend on the phone, but I ignored it all. Eventually he got the message and left. When my boyfriend came home from work, he came back to give us a verbal dressing down, threatening legal action again, etc., because he needed access to the property and we didn't provide it. I pointed out that neither of us were in when he turned up. My blinds were shut and nobody can see in, so he didn't know I was off sick, and he didn't give us the agreed notice that he'd require access, and in the future I'll no longer be dealing with him. If he wants access, to go through the letting agent, and the next time I find him in my garden I'm ringing the police for trespassing. He was still threatening me, so I told him to go for it because I get free legal advice due to a membership I had, and if he really wants to go down that route, be my guest. I've honestly never seen somebody shut up so quick. He said he'd go through the letting agent in the future, and I said good choice, and I shut the door in his face. After that he solely dealt with the letting agent and followed all instructions once he knew I had access to free legal advice. The best part about this whole incident was he could have checked the drain from his own property and never needed access to my garden. He just wanted to flex his muscles and thought he could bully us because we're a young couple. Yeah, it definitely seems like that, OP. And good job on how you handled this. I feel like you two handled this so well. I don't really understand why they were trying to do this so much though. Like, what did they get out of this? Besides, yeah, being entitled. But yeah, good job, OP. Post number 5 is called My Ex-Neighbor Wanted Her Lawnmower Blade Sharpened for Free. But it gets worse. My ex-neighbor was a woman living alone and she didn't like the fact that living alone meant taking care of her own stuff. She also had a bit of a habit of getting her granddaughter to play with my daughter, and then she'd come up with an emergency and leave her granddaughter with me. She was supposed to be babysitting her. She would often try to get me or my husband to do various jobs for her. One example that comes to mind is when she decided that her lawnmower blade needed to be sharpened. I told her that I didn't think my husband knew how to do it, since my father-in-law did it for us last time it needed to be done. My ex-neighbor then told me that since she was a single woman on her own, my father-in-law should do it if he was a gentleman. I kept telling her my father-in-law was busy and had projects of his own, and she got annoyed and wouldn't drop it. I then told her there's a local place that sells and services lawnmowers, and to get it done there. I even went as far as calling the store and getting a quote from her, because she told me she didn't know how to do it. It was $15 to get it done if you brought in just the blade, and $30 if they had to remove it. I told her it'd be easy with the right tools, and she told me it was men's work, and demanded that my husband do it for her. He refused, and she was mad at me for a few weeks because I wouldn't force my husband to do it. Yeah, what? Why do they feel entitled to even say that? Yeah, like this comment says, keep her mad at you so she avoids you. Yeah, definitely. Oh no, are you upset at me because of your entitled behavior? Oh no, maybe you won't talk to me anymore. What a shame. It's scary how many entitled people there are. The next one is called Sister Cusses Out My Daughter at Her Wedding. So my daughter, we'll call her T, came over to the house to do some laundry, and she was asking, what the hell is Aunt Liz's problem? I asked what she meant, and she explained how my sister had posted on Facebook that she and her husband were going away for their 15th wedding anniversary. T said that she'd sent Auntie Liz a congrats post, and Liz responded back with, very freaking funny. So I sat her down and I told her what I'm about to tell you. When T was 4, Liz had called us and said that she was getting married in a few months. She and I were doing the typical girly squee sounds, and oh, that's wonderful stuff that sisters usually do. When we calmed down, she asked if T would be willing to be the flower girl. I asked her and she said yes, and chanted, I'm a bee flower girl, and started running around and pretend flying like she was a new member of the Justice League or something. I told Liz, we need to work on it, but she's in. About a month later, the invites come in. In them, it was stated that Liz did not want any children under the age of 17 there, and explained why. The reasons were sound: bored children, potential disruptions, etc. I did, however, have one concern. I called her and I asked, hey, just got the invites. Me and the boys will be there, but Hubs has a business trip that month and can't make it. Do you still want T as your flower girl? Liz replied, oh god, yes, she's too cute to not have her. I shrugged and said, well, it'll be the four of us. Consider this your RSVP. She said, great, see you there. We hung up and I went online and made the reservations. A room for me and T, and an adjoining room for the boys, Ron 19 and Carl 17. Not their names. Fast forward to the weekend of the wedding. The venue is a 6-hour drive for me and I had to get out there on a Friday for the Saturday wedding. Since I had to wait for Carl to get out of school, we had a late start on Friday and we got there around 10 p.m. I got out and I checked into the hotel room and I texted Liz. They were still at the venue and they'd be there for at least another hour or two, taking care of details, so we drove over. We got there and it was the usual pre-wedding chaos. Liz was getting things to her liking and going a bit bridezilla. She saw us, beamed and came over. However, when she got closer and saw who was in my party, she blew up. Why did you bring her? She screamed. I said, but you wanted her for... I was cut off and Liz went into a complete screaming meltdown about how this was her day. She didn't want children there and how dare you bring a freaking child to my wedding, while looking right at T, and then stormed off screeching curses into the night. I was done. T was crying and saying, but I wanted to be the flower girl, in between sobs, and Ron and Cole looked like they wanted to kill their aunt, and at that moment I wasn't sure I wanted to stop them. I picked up T and I tried to comfort her and I herded the crew back to the car and we drove back to the hotel. I was seriously considering just packing up the car and heading home. I told the boys that and Ron was being the level-headed one. Mum, it's a 6-hour drive and we're all too tired and pissed to make that drive right now. We'd get in around 5 to 6 in the morning depending on rest stops and bathroom breaks. Do you really want to do that since we have a nice hotel room for the night? How about we go back to the hotel, get a night's sleep and head back in the morning? I grudgingly admitted that he had a point. Carl piped up, Mum, I've got another idea. I was waspish and I kinda snapped. What is it? Carl looked up from his phone and sheepishly said, well, T's pretty upset, which was true. It's been 15 minutes and she's still sobbing, I want to be flower girl over and over in the backseat. Carl continued, there's a county fair that just started tonight. Carnival rides, petting zoo games and that sort of thing. I snapped, so? Carl is made of sterner stuff. He didn't wither under my anger and continued on. We have the hotel until Sunday morning. Why not spend the night here, go to the fair tomorrow and then go home on Sunday like we planned? Give T something to think about besides Auntie Liz's freak out. Let her have some fun and we could all use her mum and the gang outing right about now. I calmed down a bit and said, an idea not without merit. I looked at T in the rearview mirror and said, what about it, T? You want to go to the fair instead of the wedding? She sobbed, I want to be flower girl. Carl piped up, they're gonna have cotton candy and deep fried Oreos. The crying stopped. There was one last sniffle and an exhausted but determined, I want to go to the fair. So that's what we did and we had fun. Liz could have her bridezilla day and that was that. Except that it wasn't. We'd all turned our phones off since we knew calls will be coming in and we just couldn't be bothered to deal with it. When we got back to the hotel, my mum and dad were there. They lit into me about how T was supposed to be the flower girl and we just blew my sister and her special day off. Mum, Dad, I said, you know how the invite said no children? I called Liz when we got ours and I asked if she still wanted T as a flower girl. She said that she did. So I brought T to the venue last night and Liz flipped out about how dare I bring a child to her special day. Carl, bless his I can't function without an iPhone in his hand heart, pulled up the video. I didn't know how he'd recorded it, but he was able to catch the final, how dare you bring a freaking child to my wedding? I lit into them back. So if T's supposed to be there as a flower girl, but not be there because she's a child, how the hell am I supposed to pull that off? She went to the fair to calm down and so she'd have something happy to remember and hopefully forget that Liz cussed her out. To her face, Mum and Dad went quiet and then apologized. They said they'd have a word with Liz when she got back from the honeymoon and then had a nice chat with T about the things that she saw and did. We drove home Sunday morning and that was that. Story over, back into the present. T was blown away. Mum, would I be a bad person for unfriending her and blocking her ass? I said no and we went back to enjoying some mum and daughter time. That was so good. I'm hoping it was real, but I've got a pretty good feeling it isn't. A couple of times there I was like, I can't really imagine people talking like this, but hey, I don't know, maybe it is real. Either way, that was so fun to read and I feel like that's a good place to read something wholesome. That was such a fun episode. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm proud I'm not where I used to be. Yeah, how true is that? And beautiful too. You go, Pikachu. A wholesome meme with a beautiful message. Hell yeah. Is this too small? Your hug is always my size. Oh, cute. That one's by Jang and Fox. Really cute, and the art style is too. I still have a long way to go, but I'm already so far from where I used to be, and I'm proud of that. Yeah, and you should be. I love these. They're wholesome and motivational. I got the job. Thank you for helping me look more formal. Anytime. Oh, beautiful little fish as a tie. I feel like we should end the video on this beautiful wah wah wee wah comic. So yeah, thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful time. And if you did and you want to see more episodes like this, make sure you like and subscribe. And the comment of the day today goes to JZ5986. 6. Karen videos always make me glad that my job no longer makes me interact with people. Yeah, I bet it does. I don't mean to scare you with my videos. Like, there are some really wonderful people out there. They're not all Karens, but I know what you mean. Okay, I'm out of here. Thank you for all the support, guys. Make sure you look after yourself and make sure you have a beautiful, amazing rest of your day. And you know what I'm about to say because I say it every single day. Bye!